This lesson is for Advanced Algebra, Lesson 3.6 on recursive formulas for sequences. First, we're going to look at this nice, easy sequence. It's real easy for students to look at it and sense what is happening to get from one term to the next. To get from 3 to 9, it has to have the same thing happen to get from 9 to 27, and the same thing happen to get from 27 to 81. So most students can pretty much easily see that we're multiplying by 3 each time. So what's happening? Each term, that's what the pieces of a sequence are referred to as. Each term is 3 times the previous term. It's very important that students start to think about the previous term as being the thing that determines what's happening in a sequence, because that's how we set up recursive formulas. It always references what the previous term was. We're going to look at two different methods on the calculator for how to generate a sequence, and then we'll look at the formula itself. So let's go to a regular calculator page, and let's just type in the first term. I know there's nothing mathematical going on there, but it is a placeholder for us. Then we're going to just say times, and you'll see that the calculator brings up this word called ANS, which means previous answer. So it's going to take the previous answer and it's going to do whatever we tell it to do. So we're going to tell it to times by 3. Now, I think students are probably in the habit of going ahead and continuing to do that same thing over and over again, but I can actually save you some time here. All you need to do from now on is just hit enter. If you hit enter, now we can generate the first 5 terms of the sequence. We knew the first 4 already, but just by hitting enter, it automatically repeats what it was doing until you tell it to do something else. So that's a nice option for students. You just type in the first term, tell it what to do, and then just hit enter until you get to the term you're looking for. Another option is on a spreadsheet. If you do Control-I to get a new tab, choose List in Spreadsheet. Type in your first term in the first cell, and then we're going to tell it to calculate other cells for us. To get it to calculate, you have to hit the equal sign. The equal sign is right near your Control button. Tell it where to look, so in this case it would be in cell A1, because that's where the first term is. Make sure you hit cell A1, not AI like I did. And then we're going to tell it to multiply by 3. You have the option here to highlight that and then copy and paste. Do a Control-C to copy, just like you would do on your computer. Control-C to copy. Click in the next cell and do a Control-V to paste. I wouldn't expect students to necessarily remember those commands, so I'm going to show you another option. You can tell the calculator to fill this column vertically, and to do that you just highlight one of the cells and you hit Menu, Data, and Fill. You'll see that your cursor has now become dotted. If you scroll down, and then once you hit enter, you'll be able to fill in all those values. Now let's go up to like term number 16 here. It looks like I can see that entire number, but now when I go to number 17, it has a dot, 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 so I can't really see the whole thing unless I just hover over the top of it. So if you need to, you can widen your column as needed. Go way up to the top with your cursor, and once it's a double arrow like that, you can slide it to make the values bigger. Another thing that you might see happening is when you get to some of these larger numbers, you might need to copy and paste it onto your calculator screen, and so let's just try one of those. This one, oh, we can see the whole thing, so I think that's enough information for that. So just a quick review here on what we just did. On the calculator page, keep hitting enter over and over again from the previous answer. On the spreadsheet, just remember to put the equal sign in to get it to highlight or to get it to calculate for you. And remember to tell it to look in a particular cell and multiply from there. Then you'll use Menu, Data, and Fill, and you can scroll all the way down as needed. What's nice about the spreadsheet is that then if you need a particular number, it kind of counts it for you. So if I needed term number 5, I could find that easily and just go to the 5th cell down. Let's get into now the actual formula itself. In the book, it tells you in words what the formula is. A recursive formula for a sequence is a set of statements that, first, indicates the first term, and then secondly, tells how each term is calculated from the previous. Keep in mind that the variable you'll be using is always variable n, and n represents what term number you're on. The subscript is also another way of noticing or verifying what term you're on. Typically they'll give you a letter, which is the name of the sequence, and then the subscripts tell you what term number you're on for your sequence. The first line will be the first term, so it'll say some letter with a subscript 1 equaling a number, and then the rest of the formula will have some similarities from question to question. You'll have your sequence name, a subscript n to represent any term in the sequence, and then you'll have sub n minus 1 after the equal sign, and then it'll either say plus or minus or times a number that tells you how to get from one term to the next. This is easier to figure out once you actually have some numbers. Before we move on, let's just make sure here this whole piece of the formula represents the previous term. And let me just attempt one more explanation here before we try it. If you're at term number n minus 1 is the one before the one that you're on. So these two are always right next to each other. This is the current term, and this is the term before the current one. So that's the relationship between those two. Let's go ahead and try it now with some numbers. So in this recursive formula, you can see that the first term is given, which is always super nice that they just give you that number for free. And now if I want to find term number 2, I plug in a 2 for n. And I do that everywhere in the formula, here and over here. So I'm going to say L sub 2 minus 1. And then you can see here that they want you to take away 23. Before I do that though, I want to make sure that I really understand what's going on right here. L sub 2 minus 1 is L sub 1. 2 minus 1 is 1. And L sub 1 is the previous term, 97. So I'm going to replace that with that number. So I get 97 minus 23, which is 74. So that's term number 2. So now let's do term number 3. We plug in 3 minus 1 minus 23. 3 minus 1 is 2. L sub 2 I just got. It's 74, so I'm going to replace that. And 74 minus 23 is 51. And now you don't really need to utilize that set of numbers or that formula here. You can actually just say, oh, I know my next one's going to be 51 minus 23. But for students who want to follow the pattern and plug in the numbers, that's what you would do. L sub 4 minus 1 minus 23. 4 minus 1 is 3. The third term is 51. 51 minus 23 is 28. So now I have my sequence, 97, 74, 51, and 28. So again, students don't have to use the formal process here. Most students can just look at that and go, oh, I'm going to start with 97 and I'm going to continue to take away 23 until I'm done with the first 4 terms. Another option is the second example here. Write a recursive formula for this sequence. One of the things students are going to have to do is figure out how you get from one term to the next. And that might be easy for some students and not for others. I know for me personally, looking at 324 and 108, nothing really comes to mind. Those are a little bit bigger numbers than what I'm comfortable with. But I'm going to work down here on these guys here. I know that 4 times 3 is 12, but remember we want to go this direction. So 12 down to a 4 would be a divide by 3. Let's see if that's consistent all the way down. 36 divided by 3 is 12, so it looks like we're dividing by 3 each time. So I have my results. Let's go ahead and write the formula. Always do a bracket on the side. Give your formula a name. I'm just going to say F for formula. The first term is 324. No calculating there, it's just a simple regurgitation of the number. The next part of your formula is always going to be the same letter with a subscript n, and then the same letter with a subscript n minus 1. Those two pieces will always look like that when you're writing your formula. And then we're going to say what's happening to get from one term to the next. We are dividing by 3. This symbol is not my favorite. That's typically the kindergarten symbol for divide. We usually use the fraction bar, or you can say f sub n is 1/3 of f sub n minus 1. So you can multiply by 1/3 or you can divide by 3. Now let's talk about finding the 18th term. Let's go to our calculator for that. And let's start over here on this spreadsheet. So I'm going to just delete my old stuff here and I'm going to start over. So I've got my first term as 324. And I know that to get to the next term I want to do equals a1 divide by 3. And I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to fill down on that by doing menu, data, fill. And I'm going to go down till I'm almost to my 18 here. Went a little too far and that's fine. I'm just going to scroll back now and get to my 18. So this is an example of one that I wanted to show you earlier. This is a fraction number. It's got 4 divided by 159, 432, 3. So that's not really a number that I want. I want that number as a decimal. So let's copy it. Do a Control-C to copy. And let's go back to our calculator page and let's do a Control-V to paste. And you'll see that that is the fraction that we got. If you do a Control-Enter, now you get your decimal equivalent. So that's a way to get around seeing a number in your table that doesn't jive with what you want. So it's got 5 zeros and a 3. And so there's our value that we were looking for. So there's the 18th term of the sequence. Our last problem is a word problem taken from example 3 in problem 6. Suppose the NCAA women's basketball tournament consists of 128 teams which are paired in a single elimination contest. That simply means once you lose, you're out. At the end of each round of play, the number of teams proceeding or going on to the next round is half the previous number. How many terms in the sequence? Well, let's generate the sequence. We know the first term is 128, and we know that to generate the next number, we do half. So half of 128 is 64. Half of 64 is 32. And then we're just going to keep going from there. And so by the time we get to one winner, we are done with our sequence. So now just count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 terms. There's nothing fancy here. There's no special formula that you have to learn. It's simply just figuring out how many terms it has by generating the sequence itself. Now let's write the formula. I'm going to use B for basketball. The first term is 128. Again, they give that to you. You don't have to figure it out. And then B sub n is the generic version of the formula. And then we do B sub n minus 1 to represent the previous term. And then to get from one term to the next, remember that I'm either dividing by 2 or you can say multiplying by a half.